This past week was very eventful. And I will share the events because I think they talk a little bit about our practice and about life in general, and because there have been lessons that are still unfolding in many ways. The central thing was a huge car crash that Blanche and I were in with my brother and sister-in-law. And luckily we were all ultimately fine, but, well, fine is not exactly the right word. My brother and sister-in-law went to the hospital, and Blanche and I kind of walked away from it without other than bruises and being a little shaken up. Not a real nothing near what could have happened. We were going through an intersection on a green light, and the car just went through the red light without ever seeing that there was a red light, and full blast. And I was in the passenger seat, so I bore the brunt of it, but I didn't know I had borne the brunt of it until I saw the outside of the car. And my brother and sister-in-law were in the back, and my sister-in-law was like behind me, so I didn't know what had happened at first. But I will tell you, my first reaction to the accident was, this is so inconvenient. And it was really, that's what I was feeling. I was not feeling like, oh my God, or this is, I mean, it could have been the end. I mean, you really don't know while you're in the middle of one of those things what exactly is going to happen. If you hit another car, you hit a pole, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you're sort of in suspended state. One thing that doesn't happen is you don't get afraid. At least I didn't, and Blanche didn't. There was no fear. There's no time for fear at all. It's just happening. It's just happening in a very big and dynamic way. So you're in the middle of happening that is, in a way, once you're practiced at being in the middle of happening, it's just another happening. It's happening. It's a very dramatic happening, but it's just happening. So you're there and you're going through it. I realized after the fact that Blanche and I have never been in an accident together. So that was really kind of sweet. And to the extent that I never got to see that part of my own life, who we were in the middle of a trauma, sharing a trauma, and I couldn't believe how she rose to the occasion. I mean, I've never seen anybody so easy, so calm, so in control, in the best sense of the word, not in a, containing way, but in a very free way, just helping with what's going on, with what is, helping with what is, with no tears, and she just lost, her car was 6 weeks old, and it was totaled, just totaled, and not even, nothing. So I first of all, I just felt like, oh my God, my wife's amazing. she can do this. But my brother and sister-in-law, my brother had just gotten out of the hospital a while back with some lower back problems. My sister-in-law has back problems, and right after the accident happened, I realized I was still alive and here, and so I thought I must not have borne the brunt of it. It must have been my sister-in-law in the back, because there was such quiet. And I said, Susie, are you okay? Are you okay? And no response. And then I thought, this may be, really life-changingly, seriously problematic and kind of disturbing. But then she started to kind of act up. She and my brother became borderline hysterical. And they both had fears, enormous fears, that their old conditions had become exacerbated by this situation. And my brother managed to get out of the car, but he was clutching his heart like he was having a heart attack, and he couldn't breathe, and he lay down on the ground, and his back was hurting, and my sister-in-law Susie got out of the car, and she was like very, very shaken up. neither of them were terribly present when the accident happened. I think they were both on their iPhones. So they were just not in this space of the accident. And Blanche got out, and I couldn't go out my door, because the airbags had exploded, and they were locked, and the door was completely warped, and the front tire was mangled, and so I had to crawl out. It was really complicated through the kind of crushed car, and managed to get out. And there were neighbors already there trying to help us out. And interestingly, there was a police car sitting under the freeway, we had just gone under the freeway. And he's sitting there having what he called lunch at 10 o'clock at night. And he and his partner they saw the whole thing. And so before we knew what happened, fire engines were there, ambulances were there. I mean, it was like Rudy once said, if you're going to run out of gas, you should run out of gas next to right next to a gas station with a great restaurant attached. He said, that's when you know you're in flow. Well, we had that feeling of everything just showed up. And we were freezing cold, and the blankets appeared. And they wanted to take me and Blanche to the hospital, but neither of us felt like what had happened was serious enough to go to the hospital. So we just said no, but we knew my brother and sister-in-law were he was taken on a stretcher, she was carried inside, and they went off, and a really wonderful policeman named Elijah, interesting, my grandson, drove us home, and we came home and let Josh know and a few people know that this was going on, and then we drove to the hospital, and we sat there until like 2 in the morning while my brother and sister-in-law were told they were fine. And then we brought them back here, and they were meant to go to the airport the next morning, and they decided they would go. And so life flowed back into its normal realm with this incredible kind of disruption. And it's a disruption that any of you who've been in accidents know. It's not like, okay, that's over, that's done. It reverberates. It has a place now inside you, and it's a very important place. And it's, among other things, it's an awareness. I think we all have it, that none of us are particularly special. That any one of us at any given moment could have this experience, and it can make you either very paranoid about life and fearful of everything that's coming, or surrendered and going, there's no control. There's nothing you can do to prevent something like that from happening. I know when I met the woman who was driving the car, who was a youngish woman, and she was telling the police and me that she's never been in this area before, meaning that was her excuse for going through a red light. And I got really angry, and I was surprised at my own anger. And I said, a red light is a red light. In this area or any area, wherever you are in the world, it has the same signal for everybody. And it doesn't matter that you don't know where you are, you stop for a red light. And she was so emotional. And so at one point, I realized we were about to go back to our house, that my concern went to her. And so Blanche and I went over to her, and we just hugged her and just tried to comfort her, because she was suffering in a way more than we were. And I was so grateful, because I could have left without doing that. I could have left without closure. And you don't want to have a lack of closure in circumstances in your life. Wherever you can have it, you want to go. And that means saying thank you, or I'm sorry, or whatever it is you need to say. And one of the key reasons for that comes out in an accident, because at that moment in time, it could really be your last moment. And the thing you don't want in life is to have the unfinished business that will pull you back into, if you're dead in that accident, into another life, or into a passage to whatever is beyond life, that's held back by or restricted by, oh, I should have done it, I didn't do, or I wish I had said, or all of those things that are issues for people. My movie Ghost is all about that. It's like getting saying what you have to say to people, because you may not have another chance. And it doesn't mean saying it somewhere down the road. It means saying it now. Getting it complete. You should have your life always complete. So that if in fact that moment does come, and it is finality, everything's in order. Everyone who you love knows you love them. Everyone. All the business that you best you can is resolved in your life. Things are taken care of. The important stuff is dealt with. The unimportant stuff doesn't matter. You're not going to try to come back into the world because you forgot to pay an Amex bill. You're not. But you will come back possibly into another lifetime if you had a terrible issue with your child or your parent or whoever it is. You want to fix that. And you may not be able to fix it to their satisfaction, but you want to fix it to your satisfaction. Knowing that you've done what you can do. So if that crash happens, and again, any instant it can, if it does, you can go basically, yes. The incredible piece of information for me was that there is and was no fear. That fear is an emotion that takes time to form. But in the instant of happening, which is the present tense, absolute present tense, there is no fear. There only is. Fear comes when the mind starts to enter into the picture and starts to build something around it. It starts to build what you're losing, what you should have gotten, what you didn't do, time to fear for my safety, my body. All of that stuff doesn't happen in the present tense. Present tense is completely free. It's completely open. It's saying, oh, this is inconvenient. And even that's a very shallow part of it. Mostly it's just amazing awareness. Amazing awareness. Because I saw the car coming, I was looking out the window, it made no sense. It made no sense that it was rushing at me at that speed. And there's no cognitive relationship to it. It's just, and as soon as it's hitting, you're going, oh well, so much for getting home on time. And we just come from a movie, and we were just blocks from the house. So it just felt, this isn't the way it should be, but it's the way it is. And the way it is something you can be very angry at, hostile toward, hate, or you just go, oh well, here we are. And that's what Blanche did. And it was like, oh my God, I married the most amazing woman. That somebody who truly, I mean, you don't know somebody till you share these experiences with them. You just don't know. And I thought I knew Blanche really well, but I didn't know she would take it so beautifully. And my brother and sister-in-law, who I love deeply, were exactly what I would imagine my brother and sister-in-law to be in this circumstance. And it's very different. They were blindsided. They were blindsided in a lot of ways. The moment, the present tense moment, was one of pure shock. And they couldn't stay there very long because it immediately went into all of the emotional realms of panic and fear and what could be and what might be and is there a lawsuit here? All these things that go on in people's heads. And I felt for them, and I still do. They're having a harder time recovering, primarily because whereas I think Blanche and I kind of went like that, they went like that. And that's a very big difference, and it's kind of training. If you really train, yes, your body will maybe close up, but if you've trained in spiritual practice, let's say, of letting go, very quickly, the present tense does that to you. It just, and I get so moved by my life because I have become very conscious of the incredible gift of the moment we're in, of the now, if you will. The now is so nurturing, it's so liberating, and it is, as many people describe it, the refuge. It is a true refuge. Buddha describes the Dharma, the teaching, as the refuge, but to me, really, the present moment, the now, presence, is the ultimate refuge. By that I mean you have a place that, I was going to say that you could go, but it actually is a place you are all the time. The now, free of past and future, if you can get that quiet in the now, is absolutely peaceful. It's absolutely embracing. When that airbag went off, I didn't know it went off, but I had this feeling that something was going like that to me. It was protecting me. And Blanche has a Subaru, which is, I guess, a really good car, because I think another car might have been different. But the air brake just went, oh. And so I just went, oh. You know? But that's the feeling of the now. The now feels like that. And you can bring mind into it very, very quickly within a microsecond. You can bring mind and noise and all that other stuff. But when you have a practice, which is what we have, which is called sitting still, the practice is interesting because the practice of being still begins with the noise of the mind, observing the noise of the mind. This takes real time to do this. You begin to look at it, you begin to become aware of it, analytical if you will. You begin to go, not going to engage it. You begin to see emotion coming up and go, you step back from it. You begin to deepen your presence. You begin to deepen yourself in the now. And you become, after you get past the noise and the discomfort of it, you start to get a place, you find a place that feels like home, the refuge, where I belong. Now things can happen in the now, and we all know it. You know, we'll use the accident, I guess, as an example of it. You could actually get mangled and be in a lot of pain. That could happen. We were lucky that we were not. But in that case, the now looks very unattractive. Being in the now means being in pain, inescapable in pain. And that's, yes, you want out of that. You want out. So what do you do at that moment in time? One is your brain gets scrambled into reaching all over the place, so you're not right in the pain. You start projecting yourself, dreaming yourself out of the pain. You can start going into denial. This isn't happening, this isn't happening, this isn't happening. You do all this stuff which doesn't satisfy, really. Saying yes to pain is really hard, and most of us fail at it and will fail at it. But there is a process of saying yes to that which is unacceptable. And that process involves, if you will, a kind of muscle of depth, of trying to go to a place that you can really go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the yes of the moment. It's really hard work. It's really hard work. If you do not have a muscle for it, you will probably fail. But the practice that we do is the practice of sitting still in whatever is. And we all know when we sit in meditation, like when we're sitting in this class, there's this wonderful sense of, wow, wow, it's beautiful, it's sweet, it's joyful, it's full of love. Now I'm saying this on the best of days. Some of you may sit here on a bad day and not get there. But mostly, I think you do get there. And when you work with a teacher who's sitting in a still space, it's a little bit like having a friend who puts their hand on your shoulder. It just helps you. It just calms you down. It settles you. Working with someone who's present helps you become present. That's the value of what we do. You know, if you're sitting with somebody who's intellectual or noisy or emotional or whatever, you'll just get intellectual, noisy, and emotional. You know, you'll get stirred up. This will stir you down. You get quiet. And then the work really is the unacceptable moment, the difficult moment. Many of you find that in a simple way, that you feel so good when you're in the class, so good during the meditation, and then kind of still good, really, maybe even better in a way during brunch when we're all just light and sweet and enjoying each other's company. It feels like this is good. But then you get in the car and you start to drive on the freeway and you start to have to deal with someone who, the tensions that come from bad drivers, let's say, and stuck at a light when you need to get somewhere, and then you get in your mind again, and all this stuff comes back, and you think you've lost the now. You think you've lost presence. What did I do? It was so good there. It was so good when I was sitting in the room doing nothing. Why can't I be present here? Well, it's a kind of a good question. But I'll tell you the secret. It's really very simple. The secret is you think being in the now feels like what you feel like in class. But that's not true. The secret is being in the now feels like whatever you feel like now. That's what it feels like. In other words, if you're sitting there and your tensions are happening and you're thinking about what's got to be done tomorrow and all this stuff's going on, that is the now. You just think it should be a different now. You think it should be the sweet, quiet, nothing happening now, but the real now is active. It's stuff going on. My brother and sister-in-law are doers. They do not like sitting still. They do not like having nothing to do. Once breakfast is over, they want to move, go somewhere. I see that as a limitation on a certain level, but that's not my judgment. I am their host when they were here, and they were here for 5 days. So every day we went somewhere. That's not my favorite activity, but I just said, this is what is. This is what is. My job is to take them and do all the, the headlands, the marine headlands, and Point Reyes, and do all this stuff, and we had a wonderful time. It was completely against, not completely, but it was not the way I would normally want to spend time, but it was wonderful, and I took it as an opportunity to be very present with them, and just give presence in a sense, and they felt it. I know they felt it, and it was wonderful. And when you leave here and the noise of the day fills you, all you have to do is go, yeah, okay, that's what this is. Presence and the now is every possible configuration, including car crashes. Everything. Watching a television show, you're present. You may not be present in awareness, which is something that is a desirable thing, by the way. You become ultimately more aware of being present. But even if you're not aware of it, you're there. I mean, really, where else could you be but where you are? I mean that's a crazy question, because you say, well, I could have gone this way or could have gone that way. But you are where you are at any given moment. That is your truth. It is your absolute truth. This now is all you have, and it is absolutely real. It's real. And to you, if you walk around thinking, I've got to get back to the now, you're crazy. You can't get back to the now, you're right there. So the idea, what you're really saying to yourself is, I've got to get back to the meditation or the class or whatever. And some of you, I love it, but you come here and you're so excited to come. You say you're excited. I never understand that exactly. But there's an excitement. But what's the excitement? It's the excitement of you're going to have a real immersion in present tense. An absolute immersion in present tense. And present tense is its reward, its own reward. It gives so much. It's so full. And the more you are present, and the more you, Rudy would call it, go deep, dive deep into presence, it reveals more and more and more riches, like diamonds buried under the earth, on the coal, pressed into something really remarkable. Within each of us, there's this richness of being, and it's very, very. What's the word? Expansive. It just goes on, and you keep going. Really, more. It's like, oh my! It's so rich. It's so phenomenal that you are this vastness of being. And you get there, of course, by stillness. And when the awakening if the awakening takes place. None of that goes away. What goes away is somebody who has that. Oh, I have this vastness within me. No, you are the vastness, period. That's what you are. There is no you separated from that. You are that. And everything that emerges from it. And it's hard to, I mean, there's no way to explain it. You know, the reality of our true being is that we are all there is. Each one of us. We're a different perspective on all there is, but we're all there is. And we fill each other's lives. And this group that we are here is a phenomenal group. I sat here in the class today, and all that came up was more and more love, and more specifically, uniquely loving each of you in the way you needed to be loved. That's what it felt like. It knew what you needed, and it absolutely went there. And there was this thing inside that went, can there be more? Can there be more? It's so big. It's so big. It's so individualized. It so cares about each of you. I cannot tell you how much you're loved. I cannot begin to describe it. It's phenomenally overwhelming on some level. But who is it overwhelming to? Well, it's interesting because it's not, Bruce isn't overwhelmed. It's full of its own wonder. It goes, wow, look what I am. Look what I am. This fountain of love for myself, for the self, for what is. And whatever happens to appear in what is. Whatever. Including a car smashing into you at full speed. That's a bizarre thing. I mean, not that I loved it. You know, nobody loves it. But I came away from it with new information and awareness and appreciation of my wife. I came away alive. You know, my kids didn't have to come to the hospital to identify my body. You know, which would have been tragically upsetting, I think. My sons were both deeply, deeply frightened, I think, and deeply aware of suddenly, wow, which is a good thing, because, you know, we don't know. We don't know. So that preciousness becomes a living thing that's much more dynamic after an accident than when you're just going through your day going, yeah, you know, anything can happen. I know, I get it. No, you don't get it until it happens. And then it's all precious. And then, you know, you get teary-eyed a lot. You know, your compassion level expands enormously. There's a sense of gratitude and good fortune and luck and grace. And you walk around going, you know, I'm still here. I'm still here. Why? You know, God knows how that works. But it's a new breath of possibility of life. It's not the same old, same old. And you're scrambled. My head is so scrambled. And I've been very aware of it being scrambled, and I don't know what it means, but my heart's not scrambled at all. And the being is there. The being is manifesting. It's functioning. And it's just processing differently. And I think probably in a good way. I mean, who knows? But it feels like this is, like it needed to happen. It needed to do something. And that's how it works. Life has to do something to us, often, to gear us into the next whatever it is that's happening. You know, whether it has purpose or no purpose, meaning or no meaning, you know, I don't know. But I do know that it made me so grateful and so attuned to the absolute beauty and preciousness of this moment. And I loved seeing no fear in the middle of a fearful experience. And I think I can advertise that, because I think you should know, for those of you who carry around a kind of existential fear of those things, when the moment happens, I don't know that you'll have fear. You'll be surprised by it. That you'll go, oh, you know, or inconvenient, whatever it is. But you very likely will find that all of your life of worrying about that moment probably wasn't worth all the worry, because the value of present tense experience is that the present is such a gift. That's what happens when you keep finding your way into the refuge of present tense. You will actually find your way into something that truly loves you. Both you as an ego-manifested mindful form, and the you that precedes that, which is totality itself. So we're on this great journey together, all of us. This is an amazing ride that we share. And these crazy little incidents that take place are either for us or against us, totally depending on your decision, how you want to play it. And for me, it's not a choice because it just clearly revealed itself. But if I had come away from that, mangled and in a wheelchair and all that other stuff, maybe I would have had a different reaction. I mean, you find out when you find out. But I know I look at people like Ram Dass. Ram Dass had a stroke and changed his life entirely. And my sense of him, based on listening to talks that he's given over the course of many, many years, is he only became sweeter and deeper and more amazing. That's how it can work, and it can work like that for all of us. We're all, again, you can make it tragic and horrible, and and why me, or you just go, wow, this was really significant. This is real, and I'm no longer special. Randomness occurs. There is random life for every being, and in a way, it's funny. It's random, but it's not. There's a part of it that's not random at all. It's exactly as it must be. So, use this if you can as inspiration to sit, to be present, to take any opportunity you have to tell people you love them, to make things right wherever you can in your life and know what that is. And if you can't, to forgive yourself now for not being able to. Bring yourself to a place of being ready at any moment to be present to the ultimate, whatever that may be. Because there's no way of knowing when that will take place. Any questions?
Bruce, you talked about that being aware of presence, or being present to being present, is a good thing. And I think I know from the little bits of experience that actually just kind of really works. It kind of feels good. But it seems also that maybe being present to being, like for instance, kids, and maybe animals, they're just present because they're in it. Right. They might not have awareness of being present, and that seems like a really great thing. Or if you're in the flow of sports or something like that, or art. But can't being aware of being present also be kind of being self-conscious and take it out of the moment?
Yeah, but that awareness is ego-minded awareness. That's you watching it, and that creates a duality. There's another kind of awareness, which it's not you personally watching you be present. It's presence aware of itself. It's a very different commodity. There's no one there who's being aware. It's just awareness, which also filters into self-consciousness, as you're describing, and into ego awareness, but it's minus the ego. It's just like, it's kind of like something saying, this is real.
So it's both being in unconscious flow, but being conscious.
Yes. I mean, there are a lot of people who do a lot of dialogue about consciousness and unconsciousness and awareness and lack of awareness, and it becomes so cerebral. It becomes, something semantical in a way, and that people really have a hard time trying to understand it. But it is experiential, and all I can say is, every so often when you're in the midst of flow, there will be a little thing in you that goes, oh, this is it. Just for a brief second, go, oh, this is it. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. last night we had friends over. My friend Mark was here. We've been friends since we were 11, and we were roommates in college, and we had two other roommates here. We were all together at dinner, and it's 55 years since we were all first together in this apartment. And I remember sitting in that apartment over all these years since then. We would have these long discussions, and everybody there were communists and socialists and everything, and I was like the resident capitalist or something. but we had these great discussions, but I never knew what to say. I never had a voice. My inner voice kept saying, you wanted to go, you're all wrong, this is the truth. I just wanted to do that, but I didn't know what the truth was or what I could even say, so I always was really quiet and kind, and appreciated for that in a way, but I always felt like I should speak. And last night at the dinner table, I don't know why, I was talking about virtual reality, which is one of my things nowadays, and I felt right in the middle of it, right in the middle of this conversation, I thought, I have arrived at the place I had hoped to arrive at when we were sitting in our apartment in Detroit at Wayne State University. I had a voice. My voice came out. It took 55 years, but I could feel the voice coming out and people listening. And it had a certain rightness to it. And I thought, what a little grace note that is. It took 55 years for me to suddenly find, not suddenly, for me to have a voice in this group. And it was wonderful. It was so simple. And I didn't elaborate on it. I didn't do anything with it. It was like a little bit of awareness in the background that just said, one more thing in your life has come together. One more piece of the puzzle has found its thing, and it's completeness or fulfillment is something I care about a lot. And I found myself that much more complete and that much more fulfilled. And it was a little tiny thing, but the awareness that popped through at that moment was that. It was just like, oh, we've completed another part of whatever the thing is that needed to be complete. It was not like I was flooded with awareness. It was like awareness made itself known. It was so beautiful, so simple. It was like,
for them also?
I don't know. No, probably not.
You said we. You mentioned we before.
I don't remember mentioning we, but I don't know that they ever felt what I was going through when I was 20 or 19 or whatever I was. I don't think they ever felt that. I felt it. And I always felt funny about it, and I never broke through that, ever. I never found the way to break through it. In all the years that have passed, I've become, this spiritual, philosophical character, but I never sit together with that group and pontificate at all. Well, this moment, and it wasn't really pontificating, but it was very alive. It was very, very expressive of something I would never have been able to say when I was in my teens. And it just felt beautiful. And what I'm trying to get at, two things. One is to answer your idea of awareness as something other than, oh, I'm aware, I'm always aware, I'm walking around aware. That would be horrible. It would be. But it was like this little thing that comes from the depth of being that just goes, see this, see how we work, see how your life's working, see the beautiful little tiny things that come together that make it special. This is just, it could have passed unnoticed, but it wasn't. It didn't. And it didn't because awareness brought itself into play. It wasn't conscious. I didn't sit there conscious of it. I just became aware of it. And it was very, very touching to me. So that's kind of, awareness is what arises when it needs to arise. Let me put it that way, rather than something that you can hold on to. And I could be wrong about this. There may be people out there who really are like constantly aware. Maybe if that happens, when it happens, I'll tell you. Shelley said something really interesting this morning when we were talking, and she described, she said, Bruce, you're giving field notes, or notes from the field. I'm basically telling you my journey as it unfolds. And interestingly enough, I had a wonderful lunch the other day with someone named Nathaji, who some of you I think know, who teaches in Berkeley, who's a Rudy student for many, many years and a very gifted student. And he's very involved in the ancient teachings, in the scripture, and trying to understand the teaching in terms of ancient scripture. And I don't do that. I don't know why I don't do that. Every so often I'll go and read a little Buddha teaching. I'll read the Persian poets like Kabir. I'm not totally untutored in all of this, but I don't look at it in a sense of measuring where I'm at. But in our lunch, which was a really sweet, wonderful lunch, I was telling him some of my recent experience, and he was applying them to the Tantraloka, the ancient teachings of Kashmir Shaivism. And he was just saying, well, that's what this is, and that's what that is, and that's how this works, and all of that. I don't have a system. I don't have a system in play. I'm just in the field living it. And it's interesting to me that being in the field, these things are in fact registering on the same wavelength as some things that were reported thousands of years ago. The same things that are being reported in ancient texts I am experiencing. Well, so are you. So are you. We're all on the same journey. And they call it the pathless path because you can't follow my path to these understandings. You can't follow Buddha's path to these understandings. You can only follow your path. And your path is happening because you're here. You're here. Something in you said, I need to begin this journey, or I need to go further in this journey. And so you've arrived at this place, and arriving at this place means that you too will be filing field reports if you want to. If you want, you don't have to, but the truth is we're all finding our way. And so today I'm sitting and describing the field note from a car crash. That has value. It has value. I've learned something that I can share that will have maybe something that will speak to you. And if it does, rather than put it into, ancient textual terms, I'm just putting it into day-to-day terms. And if you want to put it into textual terms, you can. But my only problem with the text is that it creates what I would call a kind of spiritual smugness. Like, oh, that's this, and then that happens, and then there's this layer and that layer and that layer, and at the 39th revelation you get this and that. And I go, well, okay, if you think you know that, but I don't trust that at all. I don't trust it at all. It's just a way of feeling secure in a world with no security. Thinking you have knowledge in a world where there's nothing that you can know, really, except this moment. And this moment has the input of everything that ever was. Clearly, we are the beneficiary in this now of every other now that ever was, but maybe there's no other nows at all. Maybe this now is the only moment there is. And science is talking about that as we speak, There was a big discovery recently in the New York Times. They were talking about it, this idea, I think I talked about it a few weeks ago, but the idea that every moment is created only by our awareness of it. That reality is only happening when we're aware of it. When we take our awareness away, there's nothing there. Nothing. That awareness, consciousness, experience makes it happen. And that's mind-bending and absolutely probably useless to everybody. But it's very, very Buddhist. It's very Buddhist. The idea that we are that which creates this. However it's done, in whatever miraculous, unknowable way, this moment is created out of pure nothingness, right at this instant. And it doesn't draw from the past or build on the future, because in this understanding there is no such thing as past or future. This moment self arises complete and absolutely in and of itself, with this idea that there was a past, that you could, if you want to dig into it, or that there will be a future that you could kind of pursue. Excuse me. But the reality is, according to science today, physics, metaphysics, and Buddhism, there's only this. Period. And the depth of this, and the absolute depth of this, is something you get to taste in this class. And it feels worth it. It's like, I'll buy that. It's so extraordinary, it's so beautiful, it's so simple, it's so easy, it's so absolute, it's so expansive, it's so complete, it's so fulfilling, and it's right there inside you. That's the miracle. It's right inside you. There's nowhere else to go to get it. Just sit still and watch it unfold. And that's all we're talking about here. You know, nothing else. Do the work, Rudy would say. Sit still, get past the part of you that's terrified of doing it. Not to put my brother down, but he told me this week that he watches 26 television shows a week. And I never heard of anybody who did that. And he's he loves it. He watches in the afternoon. He records shows. He watches at night because he's retired and he doesn't play golf. So he watches television shows. He also does something which I've never fully understood: is he can't sleep in silence. He has talk radio in earphones in his ears. So when he sleeps at night, he has talk radio going on all night. Now I think of that as being Gary. You don't listen to this. Vaguely deranged. But what it really is someone very afraid of themselves, of their own silence, of their own stillness. And I honestly think it's a condition of many people today. I really believe that. I think many people today are so distracted, so needy of distraction, and we all know about cell phones and computers and everything. They're pulling us out and out and out of ourselves. Something has to push us back into ourselves. And it may be disgust and frustration and misery after a while of being so lost in the world. But that's not necessarily the way it will work. I don't know that the automatic response to being endlessly distracted is stillness. It's often deadness. Deadness like drugs and alcohol and all those kinds of things. So what we're talking about here, the practice of sitting and meditating, is really it's not a popular choice, but it's a choice you guys have made. And having made it, try to realize how lucky you are that you have found a path to something remarkable, and it may be the most lucky thing that ever happened in your life that you have found this journey.
You said that you've been talking very clearly about what's going on, and you said your brain is scrambled, and I wondered, have you ever felt that kind of brain scrambled before? Is this something different, like processing, or?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's a little thick-headedness. I told Blanche maybe I have a little slow bleed. I don't know what's going on. Got like a little swelling going on. Because you don't know. I don't know what I hit or didn't hit in the accident, but it's definitely feeling a little odd inside here. But as you say, I think I'm talking pretty rationally and clearly, so I don't think there's any real problem going on necessarily. But I can feel that things have been altered. There's been a switch of something, and when that happens, you need to accommodate yourself to the new condition you find yourself in, which I think is what's going on. That's all I know. I don't know what's going on. I feel a lot of change happening within this reality that I'm in. And I don't question it so much. It's just I'm on the journey, as we all are. And we find our way through it. You can get really caught in stupid stuff. You can get caught in angers and hostilities and relationships. There's so many things to get caught in. And all I keep trying to do is not do that. Get out of the way, and actually to help each of you in the same way, because I can see where a lot of you are stuck in terms of the internal condition. And I don't know why I can do it, but I can go in and I can move little molecular things inside you that undo knots, if you will. And that is really, it's like what I said before, the hand on the shoulder. It's like a hand on the shoulder of your molecules. It just goes in and it just softens the moment, and it provides a new way for you to let go of stuff that can trip you up for a lifetime, and does for many people.
This isn't a question. There's a comment. I was in a car accident, and 4 years ago, my car was totaled in a 5-car accident. I could have died. And what was remarkable for me was, what shifted for me was how we just think we have control, right? And we think that this is our life, and these are the structures. Like we have these like imaginary structures in our mind, and this is the way it's going to be. And like that, it could really not be there.
It's a great gift, no?
Yeah, it's like a parting.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it was like a parting of the veils of the illusion that we have, that we are like in this security all the time. I mean, it's a secure, maybe it's like a different kind of security, because when it happened to me, I felt like I was just enclosed and enveloped in love.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't the security of, you know.
Yeah, you'd have another day.
Yeah, but I was in another day, right.
Yeah, no, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of accidents, and it's the very same thing we're talking about. And I think anybody, I mean, probably a lot of you, but rather than go through all of our stories, I do think there's a certain commonality that we share, and it's really, it comes down to this. I love the word you used, enveloped in love. We are enveloped in love. The fact is, you're enveloped in love 24/7, and if you don't know it, that's simply because you are not going deep enough to feel it. It's right there. It's right there all the time. Okay. Thank you guys for coming. No class next week, as you know. I think you know, but the following Sunday, the 22nd, there will be a class. Okay, and you'll be on a bridge game. I wish you the best at the bridge game. National championship games.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
pretty exciting. So good luck. Thank you, everybody.
Where is it?